Okay, this is Jacob Schmitt with deerhuntingschool.com. This video here, I'm just going to give you a rundown of what took place on the second and third week of bow season. I didn't hunt during the week of the first week any, I don't recall. But I went back hunting on the 3rd, October 3rd, and the 4th in the evenings. I hunted October 3rd that evening, which was a Saturday. I hunted the stand that I've been getting pictures of these bucks on, the shooter bucks that I've gotten. And I hunted that, and I didn't have any pictures or anything because I never did put an SD card back in. I took the SD card when I checked it originally, and I come back opening weekend. I forgot to bring an SD card with me that Saturday, so I didn't put an SD card in it. But I put an SD card in it on the 3rd, and then turned the camera on, hunted, didn't see anything. I went hunting the 4th, October the 4th, where I believe I've got a really good buck bedded down. There were several rubs. I found a buck bed, and there was a couple old rubs around it. If you want to go back and look at my video, a couple videos ago, you can take a look at that, my preseason scouting. I show that and what I found. So anyways, I went hunting there, and I didn't see anything until about 15-20 minutes before dark, and I heard a deer to my, I was facing towards where the buck bed was, and I heard a deer toward my left just a little bit up the hill coming, and I was like, okay, so I'm getting ready, you know, maybe it's him. And it turned out to be a doe and a little one. And then anyways, they walked past me about 20 yards, maybe 25, whatever. Let them walk. As they passed by me, I was watching behind me, and there were several other deer coming down the ridge. So I'm hunting on a big ridge, and these deer bedded on this end down here, and they're coming towards me. But the week before, I seen a deer on the ridge, and then when I looked back, there were several deer coming down off the top of the ridge. Okay, so them deer kind of went on their way, and in maybe 5 minutes at the most, I look up, and then here comes two more does. They were full-size does, both of them, coming down the ridge, coming about 18 to 20 yards, turned, and then kind of walked around me, and then walked again by me about 20 yards. I let them walk. I walked out in front of me, but they were headed straight down like they were going to walk straight under my stand. But they turned and then walked out and ended up walking out in front of me about 20 yards, and then went on down the hill. And then I turned and looked behind me, and there was a couple other deer. Have no idea what I will say the first thing is the group that I seen the two does come this way. The group of deer that were coming down the hill, I think them were all does. But then there was another couple more deer after that when I started looking up that was coming down the ridge. They were going along the ridge. I don't know what they were. They were basically walking on top of the ridge away from me. I don't know what they were. I don't know how many deer I've seen. I would say at least, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of deer. But I did notice they were coming off. It seemed like all the deer were associated with that ridge. So, you know, so far that's the information I have in that area, which is important. I'm always looking for where are my deer coming from in the evening, where are they headed in the morning. That's what keys me in on to where bedding areas are and things like that, because that's important. Understanding where your deer are bedding is probably one of the most important things. Then in a big wood situation like this, you can't pinpoint where they're feeding at. I mean, this ridge that I'm sitting on at this point here is about 4 miles long, and it's a mile on each side down to the road, and there's actually the one side you got to go over one ridge. The way I come in, I go over a ridge, go down in a valley, come back up the ridge. It's a mile to the center of this ridge, and then the other road is just down a massive steep mountain on the other side. So the deer don't really have destination food spots, like if you were hunting an ag field or something like that, where they may be bedding here and then feeding here in a soybean field. when the acorns are dropping, I mean, we're talking, what, 4 miles by 2 mile area, we're talking, 640 acres per square mile, and you're talking 8 square mile there. I mean, you're talking several thousand acres of nothing but hardwood oaks and browse and stuff that these deer are feeding on. So that's a little different. So in a big wood situation like this, I really want to key in on where are these deer bedded, where are they at, and that's important. And you can do that while you're actually hunting. So you're always observing, but using your mind, telling you, okay, what are these deer doing? Why are they coming? If they're coming from, if you see deer consistently in a certain area coming from an area in the evening, that's letting you know that's where them deer are bedded. They're coming from their bed. And in the morning, they're headed towards their bed. You can pick that information up on trail cameras a lot of times, and stuff like that. I want to go back to the 3rd, October the 3rd. I was sitting on my stand. We had a cold front that was going to move through that night, and I hadn't been hunting nothing but evenings. And I had something just telling me, I need to hunt this stand this morning. I need to hunt this stand in the morning. I mean, there's a lot of things that are just going through my mind. I don't know what you're going to call it. Instinctively, whatever, from hunting for so many years. I mean, there's a cold front moving through. Most of the buck pictures I've had are in the mornings. Most deer, honestly, I've killed are in the mornings. That first weekend of October, I've had an encounter with a really good buck. I've got 2 of them on my wall, one right here on my wall, and one, so far, the biggest buck. I can recall missing a couple on the first weekend of bow season, and I can recall several of them just being out of bow range, or me not being able to get the daggum shot off, or something happening. I recall that. I don't even know if I could count them on both hands, and that happens more often than not. I had a hunch, that I needed to hunt there the next morning, that Sunday morning, and I didn't. I talked myself out of it. I actually almost left my bow in the tree, and I went back during the week and hunted there, checked the camera, and the very first dadgum picture was Sunday morning of the 10 point. He's standing there in the picture, that rock that he's standing behind, the camera's about 23, 24 yards from my stand. The rock that he's by, that rock is actually 21 yards. I ranged that rock. Is 21 yards. So he's actually 21, 22 yards standing broadside in this picture, right and open. It's October the 28th right now. It's actually 9:17 in the morning, October the 28th, as I'm talking to you right now. That has really been salt in an open wound, that there, because I had almost left my bow in the tree. I literally was sitting there thinking. I actually thought, I don't know if you guys watch Bone Collector, but Papa Waddell was hunting with Night and Hell boys on their land, and they kept putting him up, wanting him to hunt evening in early season. Well, you can't kill bucks in the morning. Well, he got a picture of this buck, and he said, well, I'm going in. He got up early the next morning, went in there and killed this buck, and he, I sat there and that went through my mind while I'm on the stand. So this is salt. It's rough. I've been chewing on this and chewing on this and chewing on this. That's going into the 3rd week of bow season. I hunted the one evening during the week, pulled the card, and lo and behold, first daggum picture is a 10 point there. So the 3rd weekend, I actually spent the entire weekend, actually one day during the week, and the entire weekend sighting in a muzzleloader. I've never had the issue. I bought a CVA Acura mountain rifle, and it's not the gun. It's not the gun's fault. I think I got some bad pellets all boiled down to, but I ended up going with powder and weighing the powder out, and I've got the thing, driving tax. I wish I would have took some pictures while I was at the range of the target and stuff, but literally, the reason I say this here is if you are a muzzleloader hunter or a gun hunter, you want your guns accurate. You want to work and practice with them things, and you want to be accurate. If your equipment is very accurate, even your bow, if you're as accurate as you could possibly be, me, bow hunting, sometimes I'll shoot through a hole. I've got a hole right here, and I'm shooting through this hole, and I may have a limb here at 20, okay, and then I'm shooting, and the deer may be behind that limb, but that deer may be standing at 30 yards, and I've done this on a couple occasions. Okay, actually the very first deer I killed, I shot through a hole that was at 20 yards. The deer was completely blocked. You could not see him, but the deer was at 45 yards. And there was it was open as can be, but I had to shoot through a hole that was about this big. And I smoked that deer like nobody's business when I was 17 years old with a bow. I had to shoot through a hole about that size. And that hole was at 20 yards. But beyond that hole, I could lean out and I could see it was clear as day, but I had to get through that hole. So I put my 20-yard pin in that hole, and I looked and I lined my pin, the area where it was actually between my 40 and 50-yard pin, because the deer was at 45 yards. I put there right behind that deer's shoulder and floated the 2 pins in between. So here was my 40, here was my 50. I put that behind the shoulder, and then my 20-yard pin was right in the opening. So I knew my arrow was going to go through that opening, and I released that arrow, and I literally smoked that deer at run about 60 yards and piled up. So my muzzleloader, I wanted it keyed in, and I was getting almost foot groups with it. I'm like, something's not right. I'm not hunting with a gun that at foot I can't get at 100 yards. I was getting about a 1 foot group. They were high and low, and what was going on is I believe the powder that I bought was no good. I was getting some. It wasn't powder, it was pellets. I went with powder, and now that I have powder, I can, at 100 yards, I'm putting them, every bullet, in a 1-inch circle. So that's what took place the second and third week of season. I probably spent 8 hours or better at the range, and then driving and getting different powder. So I went with 777 powder, and I'm actually literally weighing it. 77 grains, weight, not volume. A lot of guys misunderstand volume and weight with powder. Basically, it has more per volume of powder. So if you was to weigh out 100 grains weight-wise of 777 or even Pyrodex, and you was to weigh out 100 grains of black powder, the 100 grains of Pyrodex and the 100 grains of black powder is going to have a whole lot more boom, and it's going to probably rise your pressures much and be very dangerous. So volume-wise, I'm shooting about 110 grains, but I weighed it out and to 77 grains, which is no problem. That's what took place. So basically, there's no way I could see a deer the third weekend. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you can gain a few tips from this. Whether it is hunting tips, sighting in tips, whatever, whether it's, making sure that your equipment is working properly, making sure that your bow's tuned correctly. If you're going to gun hunt, make sure that that gun is as accurate as you can possibly get it, so that when you're out there, you have the confidence. I have the confidence when I take a shot. If I'm hunting with my bow, I have the confidence that I can put that arrow where it needs to be. I have the confidence if I'm hunting with a muzzleloader or my rifle. I have the confidence that, within the distance that I'm going to be hunting, I have that confidence that if I decide to pick a hole that's a 3-inch hole with my 30-06, that I have on a deer that's, 50, 60 yards out, whatever the case is, I have that confidence that I know for sure I can put that bullet through that hole in some brush, some limbs or whatever. If I have an opening, I have that confidence that I know that I can make a humane kill, and I'm going to hit that animal just as solid as if it was standing out in an open field. I'm not knocking anybody, but I do know that there are a lot of guys that go out hunt. I know of many guys that will go down, they'll buy a rifle, the place will bore sight that rifle, and then they'll take it hunting. I'll tell you, I did one time, my 30-06 that I actually have right now, I will say that it was bore sighted, and I only had to click the scope 2 times, and it is dead on. But I could have took that gun hunting, but I've had several done in my lifetime, and 90% of the time They bore sight it to get you on the paper in, you know, within an 8-inch circle at 25 yards, not to go out hunting with it. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it helped you out. Have a good day, and bye-bye.